Welcome back, college softball or college baseball central fans and the weekend rotation fans. We've had an interesting week in college baseball. It's been outstanding. I'm joined by Jake McKeever and AJ Sessions. We're just going to dive right into some fun stuff. Noah might be joining us here. He's having technical difficulties. He's up in Minnesota. He's up at the snow tournament, so we're trying to get him to join in here with us. So let's go into this, AJ. What was your takeaway from yesterday's games?
My takeaway from yesterday's games is baseball is still baseball. There are two very highly competitive teams who can show up on the field and just not play a competitive game. Texas A&M Louisville yesterday, we both thought that would be a highly entertaining game. It was for Cardinal fans, but that was about it. And several other teams suffered their first loss on the year, South Carolina being one of them. Penn beat at the time undefeated Lamar team. There were some good teams to go down yesterday, and no one's going to go undefeated. So
no, this is a tough. I feel like college baseball has gotten better as a whole. There's a lot of good teams this year. Rice beating Texas Tech surprises everybody. Nebraska going and beating Vanderbilt yesterday. I don't know if it's necessarily a surprise for all of us people who've been watching Vanderbilt, but it's kind of a surprise for college baseball when a team like Nebraska wins a game. Iowa still crushing the ball, scoring 20 runs. Like, they're just coming out of nowhere with the offense. We knew that Iowa had pitching and defense, but the offense has been outstanding. Jake, what was your takeaways from yesterday's games?
Of course, everything that I knew about college baseball, I just ended up having to throw it in the trash. They had a ton of upsets yesterday. UNC Greensboro beating Rutgers. I know Rutgers was a lot of teams that people were on early. And then Friday is when you expect, your ace to go out there, and Virginia Tech and Charlotte go off for 24 in extra innings. And most of them were early in the game, too, against starters. Rice, having 2 home runs against Texas Tech. Both those guys, that was their first home runs, and they hit them at big league parks, so substantially larger than Rice. Not really going to get into A&M Louisville because I think that scorebook kind of speaks for itself. But the mid-game, TCU did what they always do in these games and pulled away late once they get to that bullpen, and that's going to be a really, really scary team come Big 12 play because, as we've seen, a lot of the Big 12 really doesn't have very good bullpens. So that's the one thing I'm really excited to see. And then want to kind of do my parade Super Bowl tour. Alabama is the last undefeated SEC team, much to AJ's dismay. But I think I was the only one that was on that.
And to everybody's dismay, to everyone's
more
dismay.
Specifically AJ, because AJ has a good baseball team to cheer for. So I have to, get my lumps in when I can because, South Carolina is such a good team this year. But
I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
I don't think anybody had Alabama being the last undefeated SEC team on their bingo card. I think I laughed at a few people that had them even in the top 25 to open the season, and now here we are. I mean, I guess the formula for them is lose your best player to your rival and keep it rolling.
Or play a really easy preseason schedule.
That's what it really
is. You can have 13 wins going into conference play, and hopefully you can hang on to a top 25 spot. Speaking of another team who just jumped in the top 25 for a lot of people this week, Link Jarrett and the Florida State Seminole losing to Florida Gulf Coast yesterday. Welcome in, Noah.
That's right.
In. How is it? How is the snowbird up there?
It's not the Snowbird Classic. That's in Florida, Mark.
Oh.
This is the
they're rocking and rolling.
Yeah, if you can't beat it, a lot of loud music. But I'll just give you guys a glimpse of what I'm looking at here. You cannot beat this right here. That is just.
That's a view.
Yep, that is one of a kind right there. And I'm on the 3rd floor of the press box here, so it gets a little better.
All right. What was your takeaways from yesterday's games, Noah?
Great slate. Had a lot of fun, at least up here. Obviously, when you get caught up in a thrilling a tournament like this, you lose a little bit of that national scope. But a lot of great games up here, and I hope you guys were able to catch them despite that broadcast. Although AJ, I am thinking of your Cox this morning. So there are my thoughts.
How about Washington putting up 32 runs yesterday? By the way, that was not a misprint. University of Washington scoring 32 against Northern Colorado. That was quite shocking. Also, Mississippi State dropping 1 to Ohio State. What is going on with these teams that are supposedly blue bloods of baseball, and they're struggling early? Like we said, seeing Vanderbilt lose, seeing Mississippi State losing games. I just don't understand where we're coming from. Minnesota loses at home in their home tournament to Hawaii, who
Well,
had
actually, they are winless. They are in the Jake McKeever official winless tracker, so that was not that much of an upset.
But Hawaii had to travel. That's like a 6-hour time difference for Hawaii, right?
Well, Mark, you're the Hawaii expert, so I'll have
Yeah,
to.
they had to play like
defer
they had
to
to play
you.
like 6 a.m. Hawaii time and still win that baseball game. So I'm impressed. I'm impressed by that. I don't know. I just saw lots of good stuff. Texas losing again. Cal State Fullerton. Maybe they are for real. I don't know. There's just a lot going on here, guys. Maryland loses another one to Ole Miss. I just don't get it. There's just a lot of weird stuff going on that I don't think any of us really saw. Miami, are they frauds? Are they really not a top 25 team? They haven't looked like it at all this year. I don't know. AJ, what do you think on all this?
I think it's, we got so many developing situations still. I think we'll truly know who teams are when you get into conference play. But there are some trends that are, concerning. Like if you're a Vanderbilt team, then you'd like to be playing better against weaker competition than you are. If you're Miami, we came in to the year and it's Miami's year and kind of just stumbling. So it's there are some trends for certain teams, and then you got teams like Ole Miss who just come out of not nowhere because they won it last year, but came in with probably more question marks than answers, and they've been able to exceed the expectation of the national fan base. That fan base is always rabid.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of weird. I mean, LSU's good. The SEC is still good, so I think we're beating them up a little bit. But ACC teams have played really well, and it's good to see. Louisville beating up on Texas A&M. Sorry there, Jake, but that's like the ACC has really proven themselves this preseason so far. That maybe they are the conference that we all thought they would be last year. Talk about that a little bit here, AJ or Jake. Tell me a little bit about this ACC surge because I know you're all on the Louisville train now.
Of course, they like an Indian that scalps their prey. I feel like I've moved on to the Louisville Cardinals, and yeah, I think the ACC has been every bit as good as advertised. Clemson beating South Carolina. I know that Clemson is not really a baseball power anymore, but South Carolina is kind of on that upper echelon of SEC teams. Mark, you're fighting Irish going down south, beating a Southern team in UAB. That's another one. But I did want to highlight Miami a little bit because they talked a lot of shit for a team that ended up getting their ass kicked.
Yeah.
It seemed like the Yadi Morales home run ended up being like the high point of the game for them, and they really weren't that close. And then Florida Gulf Coast beating Florida State and Link Jared. That one was really, really interesting because usually those are the teams that you're supposed to beat up on, like Rice beating Tech. I mean, it's just weird that everything that we think we know about college baseball, just throw it out the window. Mount St. Mary's beating Pitt. That was another one that was completely out of left field. I honestly have know nothing about Mount St. Mary's other than the location. And it's just really exciting to see. And we're kind of dancing around it. And we mentioned it with the easy schedules, but Wake, we still kind of don't know how good they are because they've played, these directional schools. Like they played Purdue's satellite campus, not even the real Purdue. So we really don't know how good Wake Forest is going to be once they face this ACC pitching. But the ACC is every bit as advertised, and the bottom's the bottom, but the top I feel like is a little bit better than we expected.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we're going to see it once we actually get into it. But, seeing these ACC teams beating up on SEC teams kind of gives me hope that there's a little balancing act going on here between the two conferences. All right, Noah, who did something cool? Who did something cool this week or, the end of last week and after we watched our show?
Coolest thing I saw was Hawaii turned a triple play right here on the field in front of me. It was benefited by Minnesota being kind of moronic on the base paths, but it was a triple play and it was pretty cool to see. So I think it kind of stole the show in that night game here a little bit.
Little League triple plays are always the most fun, so we're excited to have it. Jake, something cool that you saw this week that caught your eye, player or team or individual event?
I would say the one thing that really caught my eye was Louisville stealing extra bases from Texas A&M last night. There were a few times in the game where A&M was kind of napping and Louisville took advantage, and it kind of took me back to those Kramer Robertson days at LSU where they would always seem to take extra bases and the guy would throw it away. So that was really exciting to see kind of that brand of baseball coming back. And then the other thing, bunts. There's been a ton of bunting, and I'm all here for it. There was a ton of bunts the LSU Texas game. Basically every game I've seen it, there's been a ton of bunts, and I'm welcoming to the bunts being back.
Yeah, there's been a lot of running too. More running than we saw last year. I feel like teams like Oklahoma proved that you could run and be successful, and I think a lot more teams that realize that they don't have the power to match this year are kind of doing the running thing. AJ, something cool you saw?
I saw a bunch of teams successfully tarp their field. That for those who don't know, Ole Miss basically stole a win from Louisiana Tech, or at least stole a chance for Louisiana Tech to win the game by not tarping their field and then claiming that, oh, lightning delay, rain delay, field's not playable anymore. Weather came through. The Southeast saw a lot of games either postponed to doubleheaders today or fields tarped and you first pitch is 2 hours later. And that's what needs to happen. You need to get full games in.
Yeah, it's been a weird weather. This happens every year. It feels like where we have these weird weather patterns early in the season. It's February. It's the beginning of March. It's tough. But we're seeing like California get rainouts over and over again. Southern California and snowstorms. It just is insane to me. My something cool. Micah McDowell of the Oregon State Beavers. He's had lots of career at bats. He's been a 200 hitter for 4 years. He hit his first career home run last night. He's hitting 406, and he made 2 outstanding diving plays. Micah McDowell is my something cool, a guy who's stuck around the program, really fought for a spot, earned a spot this year, hitting 406, like I said, and he hit his first career home run last night. So congrats to Micah. That was pretty exciting for me to be able to watch that one. So I could not be more happy for that one. But lots of other stuff going on in the leagues. Jake, I'm a little concerned. Does A&M not have the leadership that we thought they would be to be a top 25 team?
I think that they're just trying to play into your hand because they're really bad last year and everybody kind of doubted them, and that seemed to be when they rise. I mean, I don't really think that they're going to be in the top 25 come Monday for us, but I think that they're going to play better outside of the top 25. And with Dittmer, that's always kind of been his MO, is he's been really up, and when he's high, and when he's low, he's low. And he was missing over the plate, and he really didn't look like a Friday starter for them. And the defense is going to have to get a little bit better. But as of right now, I wouldn't even put them in the top 50 of teams.
Yeah. It feels like they're missing like a Troy Claunch, like somebody behind the dish that's really going to settle them down and be that leader in the locker room and out on the field. It just feels like they don't have that. They have lots of good players, but it feels like they're missing that leadership, and that's kind of what I was picking on.
I would say that too, yeah.
Yeah, I was picking on Ole Miss, but it seems like those guys have really stepped up. Jacob Gonzalez has been the leader that I didn't think he could be, and so they've been really successful. AJ, first loss, South Carolina, Clemson. Does it hurt more since it's a rival like Clemson? Does that hurt more when it's your first loss?
I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt less. But also, just looking at the game, South Carolina probably played their worst game of the year. We had a run scored because of a drop fly ball in left field. We had a run scored because of a drop third strike, and then our catcher overthrew the first baseman. And too many strikeouts, and we still had the tying run at the plate in the 9th inning.
Yeah.
And everything that went their way in the field for us went against us. They drop a fly ball, and it kicks right to a guy who can tag out a base runner. It's just, baseball's weird like that. I don't like losing, but I'd rather, lose a 5-2 game where the offense battles back and you kind of fight and show something than get your doors blown off.
Yeah, it felt like the old ways of baseball once in a while were just not your day. And it literally was not South Carolina's day yesterday. They did play probably their worst game of the year. That's okay. Get those out of the way. Go win 2 more this week and you're fine. Noah, we'll talk a little bit more about that Nebraska-Vanderbilt game.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy one. At first, it looked like Nebraska took a 1-0 lead, but then Vanderbilt kind of woke up and said, "All right, we're Vandy," and then they kind of took that 3-1 lead, and they had it for a little bit. Carter Holden was doing a really good job of getting out of those innings where Nebraska could have made it a lot closer or even taken the lead. And then all of a sudden, the Vanderbilt bullpen that we've seen time and again comes in, and all of a sudden it's a different ballgame. Nebraska's able to score those guys that were on second and third. It just completely changed things when Holden left the game. It's kind of that Vanderbilt team we wondered about, of outside of Holden, who are they? So it was almost like a night and day after about the 6th inning.
Yeah, the question mark that we all had in the preseason was, how is Vanderbilt's bullpen going to be? And it has been not good. Not good enough, especially once the SEC play starts, because you're going to see tough lineups, much tougher than they've seen out of like the Nebraska. So I don't know. I'm a little concerned about this Vanderbilt team. I know AJ and I both had our reservations early in the season, not wanting to put them up high in the rankings. Some people take a look at that and make sure that we are correct in that, because I don't believe Vanderbilt's as good as people think. But, hey, they win some games. They beat UCLA. It's good for them. Jake, tell me a pitcher who has been exceptional so far this season. There's not been a ton of individual pitching performances because, it's tough early in the season. Tell me a pitcher you think has done electric stuff.
Of course. So on my pre-show research, I had Lucas Gordon out of Texas pegged, but he kind of got roughed up a little bit in the Augie Garrido Classic. So going to go with my alternate in a great one, Hagen Smith out of Arkansas. Seen him in person, really, really electric stuff. 2-0 with a .63 ERA. And the one game he didn't take a decision in was, I believe, Texas, and he did his part. It was the Arkansas bats that kind of went quiet that game, and he's been electric, and he's going to be a Friday night starter that I think Arkansas fans are going to grow to love.
Yeah, he's stepped up big. I think that he is that Friday night guy for them. I didn't know that he could be. I thought he was going to be more that Saturday, Sunday guy, but he's been terrific. Noah, name a pitcher who's been exceptional so far this season.
So first guy that came to mind was Rhett Lauder, but it's so easy to say Rhett Lauder because we know who he is, and he hasn't really played anybody exceptional. So I'm going to say Ryan Brown out of Ball State has just been dominant on the mound, kind of flying under the radar. Nobody really tunes in to watch Ball State play, but he has been exceptional. 27 strikeouts. He only pitches about four innings a game when he comes in, but he's been really, really untouchable, and a great story for the Cardinals out of Ball State.
Literally stealing AJ's pick out of his mouth. I love it. We
That's
were just
right.
talking about that in the pre-show. AJ, who's your pitcher that's been exceptional so far? I know you had Ryan Brown from Ball State, so.
Yeah, that just gives me the ability to audible to today's starter for South Carolina, Noah Hall. I mean, he has a .68 ERA. He already has an 8-inning. I think he had 9 strikeouts that game. 1-0 win over a solid Penn team. He's been absolutely dealing to start the year. He has a plus changeup. You can run his fastball up to 96, and that's not bad for a number 2 guy in a rotation.
Yeah, as much as I was down on South Carolina to start the year, I feel like I'm gaining more and more love for them every single week watching them play. This loss to Clemson does not hurt my love for them. Don't worry, AJ. I still have them in the top 25. I think they're a top 10 team, really. I feel like the South Carolina team with their pitching staff, and they're actually hitting where I didn't think that they would be able to hit. They're hitting. So I'm a little concerned for other SEC programs here this year moving forward. I got a couple. Hurston Waldrop for Florida has been everything as advertised. He's 2-0, 3.27 ERA. He's been hit a little bit, but not too bad. Trent Sellers for Oregon State is 1-1. He's got their only loss this season. Beavers are 8-1, but he's been the Friday night replacement for Cooper Jerpy, which is hard to say. Cooper was so important for this Beaver team last year. Trent Sellers is 1-1, 1.59 ERA, 11 innings pitched, and 26 strikeouts. So it's pretty crazy to see those strikeout numbers climbing that high. That's actually more strikeouts than Jerpy had in his first 3 games last year. So I'm excited to see what happens with Trent Sellers in Oregon State transferring in. So big thing there for him. Jake, let's go to the pick'ems. Let's take a look at our pick'em series. I believe AJ is in the lead.
Of course, but before we do that, I do want to mention that I believe the UMass Minutemen are going to have their first game of the season. They are the last team that has not played, so wanted to give a quick shout out because I don't think anybody is on the UMass Minutemen.
On a Wednesday show, didn't I pick? I picked UMass to have the most wins ever, so that was dumb. They didn't play the game. Cool.
So here's our standings.
AJ's 9-3, Alex 7-5, Mark 6-6, Jake 6-6, Noah 3-9.
Yep, I decided that this week is the week I stop fading AJ. I'm following him this week.
Oh, I love it. So we picked 5 games this week. Do we? I don't know if we have America's pick. I don't think we did it this week, but let's go ahead and start with number 1, South Carolina at Clemson. Everybody at South Carolina across the board. Clemson takes game 1. No, are you at all worried about this one?
I am a little bit because it has that Super Bowl factor to it. Clemson looked like they would do anything to win that game. It kind of reminded me of Grand Canyon against Tennessee. they were just willing to do anything, and they looked really sharp while doing it. So it's a little concerning, but then I also don't have it too distant in my mind when Clemson lost 4 in a row leading into this one. So I'm not terribly worried, but when you lose that Friday game, it's always a little concerning, and they have that edge at home. But the Cubs are the better team, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Jake, what do you got on this one here? What do you got for this?
I think that I put some of my jinx powers onto AJ here, and I do apologize for that because I really didn't see anything from Clemson. I thought that South Carolina was going to take 2 of 3 and maybe that one being even the Sunday guy, just because South Carolina has so many top-end pitching. But AJ, I really don't want to jinx you, but I really don't feel that worried about South Carolina with their pitching the next 2 games.
AJ, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is tough because Clemson comes in struggling, and this is the series they need to jumpstart themselves. South Carolina comes in undefeated. You're going to lose a game at some point. It's kind of hard to remain on that level. So it's South Carolina's undefeated, and they haven't moved an inch in D1 baseball's rankings. So for me, it was. South Carolina's going to take 2 or 3. They're going to drop a game because the emotions are going to be high. And I honestly prefer dropping a game on the road and then neutral site today, you're the home team, and then a home game Sunday and build some momentum going into, basically we play Bethune-Cookman next week, but after that, SEC play.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the last step here. I think that they win the next 2. I don't think this is really a worry for me at all. I think South Carolina is the better team. I think, like we said, South Carolina played their worst game of the year last night. Clemson played a good game for them. I don't see that happening the next 2. I think that South Carolina steps up and wins those 2 games. So moving forward, Miami at Florida. We all thought Miami is frauds. Noah, tell us more about your Miami fraud theory. I thought you said that they were back. I thought this was a revenge tour.
Yep, I fell into a trap. There's pyramid schemes, and then there's this kind of scheme, and they got me into it. Florida's a very, very good team. I had to pick them to win this series anyway, but Miami, I'm so off that train right now. I might come back later, but Yo-Yo Morales hit a yak. It's good enough for me.
Yeah, Morales has been good, but that Miami team has been a real disappointment. The starting pitching that we thought was going to be the trouble has been the trouble. They haven't been good. They haven't been able to collect outs. AJ, aside from starting pitching, what's the difference here in this series? Because we know that Florida's got the better starting pitching.
I mean, we basically saw the 2 teams as they were. Yo-Yo hits a 3-run bomb, and that's Miami. That's the team. In Florida, they can come at you from so many different angles, so many different guys that, hey, you pitch away from Jack Caglione, who's leading the nation in home runs, and, oh, yeah, Wyatt Langford's still there. And so they're just dynamic all across the board. For me, this was probably the easiest pick of the week.
Yeah, I wanted this to be a better series, but I just, Florida's so good. So I just thought Miami maybe punches back, and maybe this is the time they fight back, but maybe they're just not. This is not the Miami team that everybody thought top 25. Jake, let us into your insight on this pick.
Of course, I wanted to go with Florida again. This just had a recipe for just a casuals flocking, and it seemed that the casuals kind of showed up for this big series. One note about Wyatt Langford that I kind of tweeted out that I thought was a little bit funny was I feel like he's way too good to wear the number 36. Like, he needs to have a lower number. He rakes the ball all over the field. He's every bit as good as advertised. From a few of the scouts that I've talked to, he seems to be kind of the consensus number 1 behind Cruz. I know that there's some Enrique Bradfield in there, but Wyatt Langford's probably the best college bat. And like Noah mentioned, I mean, we got exactly what we wanted from Miami: bad pitching, a yo-yo bomb, and they get blown out. And I'm not really sure how much he can carry the weight, but I know that's probably going to get really old really fast, especially at that ballpark in Miami.
Yeah, the best thing about this series this year is that it's not in Miami, so we don't have to watch in that terrible ballpark that they call home. So it's just an embarrassment when you're Miami to be playing there. But Florida across the board here, fellas. What do we got next? San Diego, Oregon?
Yes.
Noah, defend San Diego.
Well, I don't know if they played yesterday. I have no idea how it went. I'm going to assume San Diego won. I have no reason to believe that. They lost. Great. Well, the Pilots have looked good this year. They beat a couple quality opponents. Not too great, but just all right. Oregon kind of struggled last week. Hot team versus cold team. Thought the Pilots have an edge. But last week, a lot of my teams went 1-0 and then lost the final two. So let's do it this week, Oregon.
Yeah, Oregon has won the first two in that one. Tanner Smith hit a walk-off bomb yesterday. So they are up 2-0 already in this series.
Terrific.
Alex also picked San Diego. He's not here to defend himself, so sorry, Alex, you're going to drop down one on this one here. AJ, what do we like about the Ducks?
For me, this was just a, Oregon team that maybe hasn't been playing how they want to play. This is a series where, not a get-right series because San Diego's a good team, but hey, play well against a good opponent, get a good result, get back on track, and I think the Ducks are doing that.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I thought this is a prove me series, and I think that Oregon wanted to prove that they do belong. They just had a tough road. They got a lot of young arms, and they're having to dip into those young arms because they got 2 injuries in the fronting rotation there. So they're missing 2 starters already. They're going young with the arms there. And those guys just need more innings. They're just going to have to get used to throwing in these situations. And they kept the game close enough for them to win on a walk-off. Jacob Walsh, first baseman's been great. Tanner Smith, the outfielder there, been All-American candidates. So Oregon really put that one together. Jake, tell us about this game here.
Of course, I was going to go with the weather aspect of San Diego having to travel up to Oregon from a weather standpoint. And I always have to remind myself that Oregon is really far from Southern California, because when I look at a map, I'm like, oh, it's just like a 6-hour bus ride or something like that. But they probably did have to fly in, but that one was a really easy one for me just because Oregon kind of plays really well, and they're still a Pac-12 team. As much as the Pac-12 doesn't want to exist, they're still a Pac-12 team.
Yeah, it's like a 12 to 13-hour drive, so it's a long ways to go to San Diego from there. So, but yeah, the weather up here is different. It's 40. It's kind of rainy, been on and off rainy, so it's not exactly San Diego weather. So, good call there, Jake. Oregon, of course, up 2-0 in this series, I believe, if all my knowledge is correct, which it usually is. So we're moving on to the next one here. Dallas Baptist. Nobody took Dallas Baptist. I really threw this one out as a teaser. Noah, I thought you were going to be with Dallas Baptist.
No, I was on the Dallas Baptist train a lot last year, and they made me look kind of foolish. So I'm on the Eagles, although I also don't have them ranked right now. So kind of a little bit of a revenge tour for both of these teams.
Yeah, this was a battle of two really 25 to 35 teams, and Southern Miss has really shown that they're the better team right now. AJ, what do you like about this team?
I mean, how can you not like the pitching? They had a weekend to forget last weekend against Illinois, and I think they were going to come against a quality Dallas Baptist team and play angry. And I think we saw a team that battled yesterday. It's 2 very good opponents. If Dallas Baptist wins the series, it would not surprise me at all.
Yeah.
But I just went with the pitching gives Southern Miss a higher floor, in my opinion.
Yeah, pitching and experience. I also took Southern Miss. Jake, you didn't go with the Texas team?
No, I do not like douchebag you. The fighting Vince Oversis, as they've been called. I think that they kind of played their best game against TCU in the midweek when they threw Zach Heaton and he kind of shut TCU down. But I really didn't see a lot of firepower coming out of this, and this one was actually one of the easier ones for me, just because I love picking against Christian universities in Texas, and most of the time with Baylor, it makes me look good.
Well, Baylor's bad, so that helps you. Yeah, this is all Southern Miss. I mean, Tanner Hall is legitimately an ace starter, and I think Southern Miss rolls here the rest of the weekend. So we'll see going forward, though. Texas at Cal State Fullerton. Now this one was tough. This one's difficult. Cal State took the first game there. Noah, defend your Texas pick.
I thought Texas would just kind of show their strength and prove that they're the better team, and so far I was wrong. And they got Mo Bamba playing right now just in honor of Texas product Mo. So maybe they can take the next 2. I think they're calling it the Augie Garrido Classic, and right now Cal State Fullerton gets to retire that number.
Fact. AJ, you took Texas here. What are your thoughts on that first game?
I mean, my thoughts is this is a Cal State Fullerton recipe. Get behind early, battle back, chip away. That's what they did against Stanford. Put themselves in the position to win that series, ultimately couldn't get it done. And that's what they did against Texas. They fell behind early and then chip away, and take the lead and, horns down. It hurt me to take Texas, particularly because Cal State Fullerton was one of my kind of very dark horse picks to do something this year. But I just think Texas has the pitching to be able to win games, and Cal State Fullerton, like we saw against Stanford, doesn't really have that long ball element to be able to take advantage of, man on first, 2-out situations to score.
Yeah.
And I don't think they have the pitching to hold up. I would love to see Cal State Fullerton win this series. That would just be awesome for baseball.
Yeah, for me, it was Cal State had to win game 1 because I don't think they could have taken game 2 and 3. They just don't have the pitching depth to match Texas. But Texas is down. They're beating themselves up. Jake, what is wrong with Texas?
Of course. Gosh darn it, no, you got me thinking it again. I would say that the reason that I really wanted to go with Texas is when I was doing some research, I was helping Katie write an article about Texas, that this isn't your daddy's Fullerton team. Like, they're not the Fullerton of old that, made all these tournaments in a row. I don't think they've been to the tournament in either 4 or 5 years. And I thought that this was kind of going to be a prove-it series of Texas. And I've noticed on Twitter a bunch of A&M and UT fans arguing about who's better and who's worse. I think we need to both accept that they're just equally terrible. And this was actually the first time all year that they had both lost on the same night, and they've yet to both win on the same night. But I thought Texas was going to have a little bit more firepower. I thought Porter Brown was going to be a bat that I thought Texas could have used a little bit more. But pitching and timely hitting and, like AJ said, chipping away for the Titans, it seems to be the recipe. And if you can beat Texas on a Friday, you can definitely beat them on a Saturday and Sunday, because Friday's really their only guy.
Yeah, it felt like this is a old George Horton team, man. Like, this team just battles and they just stay in the game. They stay close enough to keep being the chance of winning, and then they take the lead and then they hang on to it. So I like Cal State. Looks like Alex picked with me. You're a smart man, Alex. We're going to take one from AJ this week so we can claw one back. I think this is the only one I picked different than AJ this week. So hopefully Cal State can hold on for me and hang on and give me a chance here. All right. Did you say we had a question from the fans there, Jake?
Yes. Yes.
Is it AJ's mom?
Is
No.
not AJ's mom.
Do you think Alabama is a pretender or a contender? Let's go Noah first, since you're on site there. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Yeah, I'm on site here. Alabama might not play today, but I've had such a trouble with ranking Alabama because they haven't done anything for me, not just this season, in years. Whenever we put expectations on this team, we see them in the SEC tournament, and they're like, "Oh, they might squeak in," and then they miss, and then they're just a not quite their team. I know that somebody in their comments said, like, Brad Bohan's a good coach. To be seen. I went ahead and looked at their schedule, and they don't play a program that I'm really invested in until March, and that's against Florida. So, or I guess it is March 16th.
Yeah, big Florida homer, Noah.
Yeah, I'm a huge Gator guy. But that's the quality of the opponent they play is a bunch of high school teams between now and then. So maybe we could talk about ranking them after that Florida series. But until then, I'm just not comfortable doing it.
Yeah. Jake, what do you got on that one? Alabama, contender?
I mean, I think
pretender?
they're top 10 in the SEC, and I think that's very good for where they've been. But yeah, I mean, they beat Richmond, Tennessee Tech, Tennessee Martin, High Point, Pepperdine. Actually, no, they didn't play Pepperdine. Sorry about that. High Point, Jacksonville State, and Illinois Chicago, a bunch of directional schools.
Yeah.
Across those 5 teams, I don't think I could name a single player, and I think that that's very telling on Alabama's schedule. And I think that they're going to get exposed to high-quality SEC play. So I don't see them being – I think they'll be better than A&M, though, so they won't finish last in the SEC West.
Considering we deep dive into teams that we love that are all these directional teams and we can't find a single player on any of those teams that they just played, I'm going to say that they're a pretender.
That's really deep.
That's so deep to be able to play that. You're not even playing baseball schools at that point. AJ?
I mean, you can't fault Alabama for taking care of business. You still got to win the games in your schedule. But just because you beat up on the people you should, that doesn't mean all of a sudden you're a contender.
Wake Forest.
I think that's a little different. But for me, it's, I'm more keyed into are the guys who need to carry that Alabama team performing, because Andrew Pinckney has been great for them. He's going to need to continue to keep that level for them to want to do something in the SEC. Um, their pitchers, Hit and Hess. Hit has been very good. Hess can be a little bit better. Both those guys will need to be sharp to give them a chance to win SEC series. The talent's there. I'm just not ready to call them a contender.
Yeah, in my book they make the SEC tournament probably, but they're like their 11 or 12 seed because I don't think that they're better than a lot of teams in the SEC. And I think once they get into SEC play, we're going to really truly see Alabama's true colors. Beating up on bad schools early is usually a Pac-12 thing, so it's interesting to see SEC go out and do that. Do we have any more questions from fans, or is that the only one we had there today?
That was the only question.
All right. AJ, bigger surprise, Vandy's struggles or Ole Miss success?
I'm going to go Ole Miss success because there were a lot of comparisons to the Mississippi State team who won a title and then lost some leadership and then, lose your ace for an undefined amount of time. And we saw that team just fold last year. And I think a lot of people were expecting Ole Miss to not fold, but struggle. I think with Vanderbilt, we kind of saw some chinks in the armor. We saw, how they could lose some games, how they could struggle. And Ole Miss, they played a quality Maryland team and lost the first game of the series. If that's Mississippi State last year, I think they roll over. And they didn't. They battled back, won the series, even beat that same Maryland team yesterday. So I've been very impressed with Ole Miss in terms of the leadership on that team, the guys who came back, and particularly Jake Gonzalez's ability to be a leader on that team.
Yeah, I'm getting close to being a man of being ready to eat my words that I was wrong on this Ole Miss team. I really thought that they were going to flop. Hats off to Bianco and that team. They've really been good. I thought that they were going to struggle early in the season. I thought that they didn't have the leadership to really take over. I know that AJ, we had talked about Vandy's being struggled, not being as good as everybody thought they would be, and we've been dead right on that. They're just not the team that everybody thought they would be. They have front end pitching, but they don't have a bullpen. They don't have offense. So I'm more surprised, like you are, with Ole Miss's success, though. That caught my eye, and I just wanted to say, Ole Miss fans, I might be wrong. I'm okay. I can eat my words and say I'm wrong. I'm a big man on this one, not just in size. Noah, Florida State, caught in the Link Jarrett hype train, or are they actually a top 25 caliber team? You're muted still.
Unmuted now.
I hear more
If they're going to go out, yeah, no. Now sounds like we've got
got some Queen going on.
Yeah. Don't stop me now. But anyway, we've got a Florida State team that they just won a big series against TCU, but then they go and flop against FGCU. So I'm really not sure what to expect from this team. But I'm a big believer in Link Jarrett. Mark, I know you are as well. So they might be caught up just a little bit right now, but their schedule's gonna ease up a little bit for them, and then they play Florida, then they play Virginia, and really dive deep into the ACC with Miami after that. So they've got a little bit of a time to kind of adjust to the noise outside their walls. But I think Link Jarrett's going to do a good job of humbling them a little bit, keep them down. That's why he lost to FGCU on purpose last night.
I do love Link Jarrett, and I do think that this team is built on pitching and defense. They don't really have a ton of superpower offense there, so it's going to be interesting to see how they combat in the ACC. They're kind of doing it a little different than most teams. I know Wake has pitching and offense, but not a lot of teams have a ton of pitching in the ACC, so I think that's where Florida State's going to have to kind of battle is with their pitching there. Another ACC school we're going to break into. Jake, is Louisville's offense going to be enough in ACC play to accomplish their goals without really super high talent on that front end of the weekend rotation?
I would say yes. And if you would have told me this 24 hours ago, I would have said no, that the good pitching always beats good hitting. But, I mean, Christian Knapczyk, his approach at the plate is just tremendous, even with 2 strikes. I mean, he puts the ball in play like you wouldn't believe. And they're a really fast team. They kind of remind me a lot of OU last year, where they have just enough pitching and they kind of create chaos on the base pass. I mean, when you score 14 runs in any game and the team only commits, I think, 1 or 2 errors, and that's really off the strength of your hitting, I think Louisville is for real. And right now they have to feel like the favorite in the ACC. I know that's very, very lofty assumptions, but I'm jumping on the Louisville hype train.
It's strange when you say that because we were not really placing them that high early this season. We had teams like Virginia Tech, Wake Forest, even, looking up and down that North Carolina people had higher than them. This Louisville team's been everything that they've been advertised. They have actually been the offense that they used to be in Louisville, and it's really exciting. They look like an Omaha caliber team. I want to see more from the pitching. I want to see them compete in the ACC. I want to see them really get down to the nuts and bolts of it and being able to win series in the ACC. Weekend series in the ACC are going to be tough this year. It's a tough competitive nation. Miami playing badly though, that kind of
that's gonna be the
builds up
gimme.
for Louisville. Yeah, that kind of makes Louisville feel a little bit better here, especially since a lot of people had Miami as a top 10 team preseason. So, all right, the question everybody wants to know, the question I've been getting asked anywhere I go, all the Texas teams, they all seem like they could win or lose on any night. It's just crazy to me. Noah, which Texas team will be the highest ranked team at the end of the season?
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to tell so far. The answer's got to be Baylor.
They're gonna get
No.
hot.
It's TCU. They have the most impressive resume so far. They have such a strong schedule that if they can rack up enough wins, they're going to kind of have a cushion wherever they are in the ranking. And then even if they lose, they're going to be able to be a tougher team because of it. So I really like where they're at. Texas is, of course, the brand, and Jake will be talking about how Texas sucks later March, but then in April he'll say it's setting up for them to be a host. So we'll see.
I was right, unfortunately. I hate being right about them.
But then Texas Tech is a little bit of a wild card there. I'm not a huge believer in the Red Raiders. Obviously, they lost to Rice yesterday, who I would love to be the best team in Texas at some point eventually again.
No, you
But
wouldn't.
for now, I think it's TCU.
Yeah, it's really Texas Tech is an enigma for me because I don't understand. Some weeks they play great, some weeks they play terrible. But it feels like every team in Texas does that. It feels like there's great games from all of them, and they're terrible the next week. I don't understand. Jake, Texas, who's going to be the best team out of Texas this year?
I really wanted to say TCU just because they're going to get to play all these crappy Texas teams like Texas and a few others. But I'm going to go way, way out of left field. Texas State. I think that they have a really favorable schedule. They get Southern Miss at home in the Sun Belt, and it's going to really set up there where they're going to rack up some wins against quality opponents like I said, Southern Miss, Coastal Carolina, playing Grand Canyon this weekend. Their tournament team last year have that midweek with Texas. I think that we'll find Texas State being the top-ranked Texas team just because all the Texas teams kind of fall out. I don't see many. I see them and maybe TCU being ranked, and other than that, I don't see DBU being ranked. I don't see Lamar being ranked. Houston Christian might be worse than Baylor.
Yeah, that's Sam Houston State was supposed to be good, and they keep losing ball games too. They have superstars in the outfield, and they can't even seem to win games. So, yeah, I like that take. I like that Texas State. AJ, best team in Texas by the end of the season.
I mean, if you need someone to go off the reservation, Jake's your guy.
I lean on that.
Yeah, throw back to when he picked a Boston College player in the Golden Spikes draft.
He's hitting 300, I believe.
Honeyman?
He's doing good. It's been a good
him.
pick.
We love Honeyman. You leave him out of this, AJ.
I mean, it's hard for me to go against TCU right now just because Texas Tech, I don't know. I love the team. I love the offense. The consistency for some reason isn't there or hasn't been there. It has the potential to be. I love when Texas Tech is good. I love, regional games at that field. But I can't trust them right now as much as I want to. That TCU is just, they can tear the cover off the ball. They can also beat you in a 2-1 game. I don't think there's much right now outside of, a Texas Tech squad going on a 12-game win streak as TCU maybe goes 8-4. That could bring someone else into the argument, which certainly could happen. Texas Tech's a talented team, but for me, it's those two, and it's a healthy gap between the two right now.
Yeah, I don't think that Texas catches back up this year. A&M is like on my borderline. I want to say A&M is going to be better, but they really seem to have lost that leadership and not been able to compete where they should be in the SEC this year. So I'm going to go TCU as well. I think that they just kind of put it together this year. They have the roster that says that they can compete in any game. Like AJ said, they can beat you 10-2 or they can beat you 3-1. It doesn't really matter. They're going to go out and compete every single game. So I think TCU wins the conference again in the Big 12. And I think that that puts them as the highest ranked team in Texas this year. So final thoughts, Noah.
Yeah, just excited for day 2 here in lovely Minneapolis. I think it might be the only college baseball tournament with snow on the ground and the expectation of snow. Can't wait. I think that these two teams, Vanderbilt and Maryland, been watching them warm up for about an hour and a half now. They're looking pretty loose. So I think that if anybody was saying, "Oh, I don't like the Cambria Classic because they're not scoring a lot of runs," I have a feeling that there's going to be a lot more runs in this game. Not based on anything, smart, but just they look good.
Maryland Vandy, that could be a team. One of those teams is going to be 0-2 in this tournament. That could be a big drop for either one of them right now. So that's exciting. Jake, final thoughts?
I'm really excited. I get to see Texas Tech, Michigan, TCU, and Louisville, and then Rice A&M in the nightcap. So hopefully a get right quick game for Texas A&M, and then Louisville. Hopefully they're as good as advertised. This will be the second good team. Some are saying this might be the first good team that they face. So we'll get to see how Louisville does.
I like that. Might be the first good team that they play. AJ, final thoughts?
I mean, weird kind of coincidence right now, but South Carolina Clemson's neutral site game is at Greenville Drive, and Gavin Casas, who's the first baseman for South Carolina, will be playing on the Red Sox minor league field as his older brother is the Red Sox first baseman. So that's kind of a interesting family connection. I'm waiting for Gavin to hit one about 600 feet today because I feel like that's just, the Casas family just rakes, and they rake it the Boston ballparks, and the Greenville Drive Stadium is the dimensions of Fenway just in Greenville. So it's kind of a cool just baseball, times a flat circle moment.
I like it. I love it. That's a great connection there. I'm not gonna lie. Oregon State's playing a doubleheader today against Cal Poly. They're not going to play the Sunday game because there's rain coming Sunday, so they moved to doubleheader. I'm excited to watch that one here. Charlotte at Virginia Tech. Our boy Cam. I want to see him do something here. I want Charlotte to beat Virginia Tech. Sorry, Jake. I just want to see this because they battled so hard last night. I just think it's great. For college baseball, I'd love if Miami would punch back a little bit. So my final thoughts is I would love if Miami would actually punch back instead of just being bullied this preseason. I'd love for them to actually fight and show me that they have anything. And I'd love for Alabama to lose to UIC just to knock every SEC team to 0 wins. So, all right. That's it for us here. Go to Home Field Apparel. Go get your clothes. Go get your wonderful fan gear. Use code CBC15. Get 50% off of your first order. Other than that, thanks for joining us here on the Weekend Rotation. I've been Mark Garland, Noah Darling, Jake McKeever, AJ Sessions. We'll see you again next Saturday.